And our fifth main topic today gets submitted to us by Jesse Keller. And Jesse Keller writes, "Hey, John. As of writing this message, it is still Sunday, but BoxOffice Pro just tweeted that Venom Let There Be Carnage has made a huge $90.1 million for its opening weekend at the North American box office. I know I didn't see that big of a number coming. What are your thoughts about this insane box office number?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Jesse. Now, I talked earlier this week about Venom, or last week I should say. I had a lot of fun with this movie. It's not for everybody. I understand the first one wasn't for everybody. I get that. But the audience has really been responding to it. It has an 85% audience rating, which is up from the first movie. And the critic rating, while it's not great, is double what the critic rating was for the first one. And so, again, I had a very good time at it. I had a lot of fun. I laughed a lot. I was smiling a lot. I thought the action was great. There's a few scenes that didn't really work for me, but overall, it was I had a really fantastic time. I don't like it as much as the Suicide Squad. I didn't like it as much as Shang-Chi, but I still had a very, very good time with this movie. And Rob, you and I have been talking a lot about what could we see it doing business-wise. And when I realized how much fun the movie was, I upped my thing a little bit. I said about 60. I think you said 70, if I'm not mistaken. So you went a little higher than me. Yeah, well, we were both off because this thing broke the pandemic. This is the biggest opening weekend since Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. It beat Fast 9. It beat Shang-Chi. It beat Black Widow. And Rob, by the way, it beat Venom 1. This movie, in a pandemic era still, when we're still in a recovery mode, made more money than its first film did in its opening weekend that wasn't in a pandemic mode. And it made $90 million at the international box office. This comes to us from The Hollywood Reporter, who writes, "In a stunning boost for theatrical, Venom Let There Be Carnage opened to 90.1 million at the domestic box office, the biggest three-day launch of the pandemic era, fueling the biggest weekend overall since COVID-19 shut theaters down in March of 2020. For the first time during the crisis, domestic box office revenues came in, listen to this, Rob, came in less than 15% behind the same weekend in 2019. On the same weekend 2 years ago, superhero sensation Joker opened to 96.2 million. Venom 2 marks the second best October launch of all time behind only Joker, indicating that moviegoing returned to some semblance of normal over the weekend." That, of course, comes to us from THR, The Hollywood Reporter. And by the way, our friend Kevin Cow sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Kevin Cow. Rob, there are so many numbers here that are WTF numbers. First of all, it set the new era record. The biggest opening weekend since before the pandemic thing. That's like, what? Yeah. Second, it beat its own previous film opening weekend record, or weekend number. What? Third, even though we're in a pandemic era, it is the second biggest October opening of all time, only behind Joker, and only 15% for a whole weekend behind what that weekend was in 2019. What? That, Rob, and I think what this shows us was that, you know, I always tell people, don't underestimate how much the audience actually enjoyed Venom and had a good time at it. And I think I was guilty of doing just that. I think I underestimated how much the audience, the average moviegoer, had fun watching the first Venom because they came out again. And Rob, I give credit to movies like Shang-Chi and Free Guy and whatever that started the process of getting people, and before that, Fast 9, even though I didn't like the movie, it did a lot to help getting people back into the theaters again. I give credit to movies like Fast 9, more recently Free Guy, Shang-Chi, for getting people back in the habit of coming back to the movie theaters again. I'm sure that helped as well. But Rob, I heard some people have some lower guesses than me. I heard some people give some higher. I didn't hear anybody say 90 million. Like that's crazy good. And I should have known, because when I was in that theater for the first opening night with Ann, Dude, my theater was packed. Other than a few empty seats near the front, my theater was packed. And I started hearing from people saying, dudes, our theaters are packed too, and all this kind of stuff. 90 million. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Anyway, Rob, you're seeing these box office numbers rolling in now. Obviously, you guessed a little higher than me, but even it way outdid even your guess, which was higher than mine. Why do you think this movie was able to triumph so hard at the box office this week? And what do you think the overall ramifications? What can we take away from this?
Well, first of all, the first Venom, I think, exceeded everybody's expectations. And I think the reason that it did was people, like you pointed out earlier, just had fun with it. It's a wacky film. And sometimes that's all that's required. You go to the movies to have a good time. And for the people that enjoyed it, Venom was a good time. How do you plus that? You bring in Carnage. It's the impulse of these two wacky creatures fighting one another. I think it's kind of irresistible. The same way that I think everybody, John, could get behind Godzilla fighting Kong. You just think about that and it puts a smile on your face. It's like the idea of Halloween. You go trick-or-treating, you get to dress up and you get candy. What's not to love? And even if you grow up, and you've got kids of your own, Halloween's always fun. I think the idea of Venom versus Carnage was just the idea of it, like Godzilla versus Kong, it just makes you smile if you're so inclined to like those things.
Right.
And I think that people were excited about it. Like even me, I'm like, I need to get that Carnage hot toy so I can, set up Venom fighting Carnage on my shelf. And I'm not even I wasn't a big fan of the first Venom, but I understand why people liked it and it's kind of fun. And I think this movie obviously touched a nerve and people had a good time. And, I think this movie kind of knows what it was supposed to be. So apparently it's delivered what people wanted from it. And how many things can you say that for, especially in this day and age?
Yeah. So let's look at this now. So Venom comes out, makes $90 million. If you had told me, Rob, in 2019, hey, there's in 2021, you're going to get Venom 2 and you're going to get 2 MCU movies. Oh, and by the way, Venom 2 is going to outdo both of them in their opening weekend box office. I would have said you're nuts. I would have said you're crazy. But here we are. It's made $90 million. Audiences are flocking out to see it. When you look at the audience responses, it's got an 85% audience rating, higher than the first one. So, Rob, let's look at now next week, this upcoming weekend. We got Bond opening. We got Dune coming. We got a bunch of films coming out. What, if anything, what does this tell us about how we should readjust our expectations box office wise moving forward? Like, is this telling us that, hey guys, the box office is back? Is it just an aberration? Is it, hey, this Venom was a one-off kind of fluke? A lot of people were excited about the first one. They wanted to come back, see it. Or can we expect to see higher than we were expecting? Like, is Bond going to do better than we expecting? What do you think?
I think it is. I mean, maybe not. The thing is, if you actually look at the box office of the last James Bond films, they don't make as much money in America as they make around the rest of the world percentage-wise. However, I think that the hype, the fact that, and for the first time, I would say that Billie Eilish singing this song, if you look at, I went and looked on YouTube on the actual Billie Eilish official video for No Time to Die. There's people that are Billie Eilish fans that haven't seen Bond movies before and went just to hear the song and are loving the movie. I think that this film is going to do quite well. I think it probably will open better than Spectre or Skyfall did. I think there's a lot of interest in this movie, and I think people want to go back to the movies now. And, we've talked about this was a big month for movies, John. We still have a lot of real interesting films come out. Dune's coming out. One Night in Soho is coming out. Halloween Kills is coming out. I think people want to go back to the movies. And I think if Venom is any indication, I think No Time to Die is going to have a huge domestic opening.
Well, now look, it's No Time to Die is obviously going to be #1 at the box office next weekend, right? Because it's going to be Venom's second weekend. It's going to be Bond's first. Rob, I did not think that No Time to Die could make $100 million at the box office opening weekend. I didn't think it could. I am reassessing that now. After seeing Venom making 90, I'm now thinking Bond hits 100 million. Over or under 100 million, Rob, for Bond this coming weekend at the domestic box office.
Dude, I'm gonna go with you on that. I think it's gonna make 100 million. It's gonna be the first one. By the way, I do want to correct. You're correct. Shatner, by the way, is going to space on the 12th, not the 18th.
Oh, okay, yeah, because we were talking that off camera, and I said, "Isn't the 12th?" And you said, "No, it's the 18th."
I'd
okay,
like
so
to correct myself. I thought it was the 18th. I didn't realize it was so soon.
Okay, so it is the 12th. Okay.
But I do think 100 million, dude. I think it's going to hit it.
Yeah, and a week ago, I didn't think that was possible.
Although, you know what? Let me pull that back, because Venom is 90 minutes long, and No Time to Die is the longest Bond film at almost 3 hours. So Venom could have double the shows that No Time to Die does. So I'm going to pull back. I'm going to say No Time to Die does 80.
But keep this in mind
80.
too. I don't really think number of shows matters until you're getting to a movie that is making like 200 million at the box office, because the only thing about length is, okay, at 90 minutes, you can't add on the extra, or at 90 minutes, you can add on those extra screenings to blah. I don't think that was a problem. Like, I think if people wanted to go see Venom, I mean, the theaters were filling up, but I never heard from anybody saying, oh, I wanted to go see Venom, but all the showtimes were all sold out. You know what I mean? So I don't think that's going to hurt it I don't think it's going to hurt James Bond No Time to Die that much right here. I don't think in order to get 100 million, you don't need those extras. There's enough seats for a 2.5 hour plus long movie to make over 100 million in its opening weekend. Maybe not $250 million on an opening weekend, but there are enough seats out there that enough people can get out and see this to make that kind of money. So I'm going to stick with 100 million. I'm going to say, now the big question here, Rob, is this, pertaining to Venom. Can Venom, with Spectre No Time to Die opening next weekend, can Venom actually keep its second weekend drop between 50 and 60%? That's a huge question, because for most movies, that's where you want your drop to be, somewhere between 50 and 60. You don't want to go over 60. If you're under 50, you're popping bottles of champagne. But it's opening against a major, it's coming into its second weekend against a major release like No Time to Die. Do you think Venom can have a second weekend drop that stays between 50 and 60% drop? Or do you think because of No Time to Die, it'll have a greater than 60% drop?
Ooh. That's a tough call. I think it's going to have a pretty substantial drop. So I would say, what did you say, 60% drop?
Yeah.
I think yes. I think it's going to have a 60% or more drop.
Yeah, I if it wasn't for James Bond No Time to Die opening, I would have said it would stay between 50 and 6% drop. I think this thing's going to have legs. The audience is entertained by it. People are liking it. They're telling their friends about it, blah, blah, blah. But it's going into a second weekend against one of the most anticipated films of the year. So I agree. I think it's probably going to be a little bit more than a 60% drop, which I think they probably expect. But whatever. The question is for you guys. What do you think about this? Venom 2 shocked the world, making more than 2 Marvel MCU films in its opening weekend. It's got a double the critic score that the first one did. It has a higher audience score than the first one did, sitting at about 85%. What do you guys think? Are you surprised by this thing making 90 million, the second most money in October history, only behind Joker? The most money made in an opening weekend since Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker? What do you guys think? Whatever your thoughts are, jump down into the comment section below and leave your thoughts there.